Hi, it's Dwyer, gamblersadvisory.com. It's the day of the fight, post weigh-in. Carl Froch versus Lucian Bute. Remember, the opinion you should follow should be your own. Just consider this video to be a second opinion from a complete stranger online. Now, I've heard from YouTube Nation. I believe Lucian Bute is going to be simply too fast for Carl Froch. I believe it's going to be surprising to many how Lucian Bute will be able to drop his hands in this fight. And that's crucial because there are questions about Lucian Bute's stamina arising from the first Libredo Andrade fight. And so I believe to conserve stamina, like Sergio Martinez, Bute is going to want to have his hands down. In other words, I don't expect to see Bute with rabbit ears. I'm expecting Bute to be turned to the side. He's a southpaw, waving his hands from low. I'm expecting Bute to have his hands down around his waist for most of the fight. He wouldn't be able to do that if Carl Froch were faster afoot and less predictable. But I believe Carl Froch moves in straight lines. I don't believe he has the kind of game that enables him to run across the ring. So I think Bute should be able to dictate distance in the fight. It's not just the punches thrown. I'm expecting Bute to land some pretty brutal body shots and to get in on Froch, right? But it's also the distance. Who dictates distance? And I just feel that Carl Froch is going to have a hard time closing the gap between the two fighters. Now, all of that said, YouTube Nation has spoken. As you can imagine, Carl Froch has some very passionate fans, right? And they've made a few points. Let's respond to the points. The first is, and this is a common theme in the media and here online, that Lucian Bute has never fought in the United Kingdom. Bute is a sheltered fighter who fights predominantly in Canada. And when he actually travels across the Atlantic, he's going to be dealing with a hostile crowd, a foreign environment. That added pressure is something he's unaccustomed to, whereas Carl Froch has fought Jermaine Taylor in the United States. He's fought Mikkel Kessler in Denmark. Carl Froch is the tougher fighter. Bute is going to fold up overseas. Let me just say, fans need to realize that this is prize fighting, right? The boxers are really fighting not just for fame, but they're also fighting for money, right? Now, Lucian Bute, quite frankly, might simply be fighting in Canada for the same reasons that Floyd Mayweather fights in Las Vegas. Bute sells out the Bell Center. He makes a lot of money fighting in Canada. Why would Bute fight someplace else for less money when he can maximize his prize by fighting before a sellout crowd? Right? Granted, that sellout crowd is rooting for him, but isn't that really just part of the puzzle? Isn't the other part the fact that Bute, quite frankly, pulls in more fans for his fights in Canada than Carl Froch pulls in when he fights in the United Kingdom, or when he fought Jermaine Taylor over here in the United States, or when he fought Glenn Johnson, right? So Bute might not be sheltered. Bute might simply be a businessman. For all we know, in fact, I believe this is the case, Bute is such a mathematical fighter that I don't believe it matters where he is. I think in his mind, as he said in interviews, when the fight starts, it's just he and the other guy in the ring. But just like, prize fighters don't fight in locales that only generate 4,000 or 5,000 fans, when they have other locales, well, they can generate 15,000 fans. Bute is going to fight where the money is. Now, Bute's 32 years old. I believe he's reached the point in his career where he, is financially comfortable, right? He's no longer a young, hungry fighter. He's been a champ for years. He's made the money. So now at 32, he's willing to fight guys where they are. He's talked about Froch in the UK. He's doing it. He's also talked about Kessler in Denmark. He's unafraid. I don't think the crowd is going to be that big of a factor. Let's puncture another folklore. Sometimes in boxing, packaging, marketing, advertising sometimes obscures perception. So, online, I'm hearing here that Carl Froch has taken on all comers, and he has really, right? He's taken on all comers. He's fought the A-list. He's fought the tough guys in a super middleweight division. And that Lucian Bute has fought no one, right? That Lucian Bute, again, this is part of the Bute has been sheltered. Lucian Bute has thrived against inferior opposition. And that this is a huge step up in class for him. Carl Froch has hinted at that. Of course, Carl Froch is one of boxing's premier trash talkers. Right, let me just say, don't get too fooled by the marketing. Let's look back at the Super 6. Let's analyze the fighters in the Super 6. Has anyone noticed that Arthur Abraham has looked awfully limited of late? Awfully limited, right? Arthur Abraham really can't move that well. When he does move, he moves in straight lines as he jumped from 160 to 168. Right? His punching power didn't fully carry. Right? He threw a devastating punch against Andre Durrell. Unfortunately, right time was called in the fight. Andre Durrell was down on one knee when he got hit with the punch. Right? The point is simply, as we look back at the Super 6, was Arthur Abraham really that great? What about Jermaine Taylor? Jermaine Taylor got stopped by Carl Froch before the Super 6. There were questions about Jermaine Taylor's stamina before the Super 6. In fact, before the Super 6, wasn't Jermaine Taylor shuffling through trainers? Didn't he, in fact, have Emmanuel Stewart for about 5 minutes, right? Because Jermaine Taylor had some things he was trying to work through, right? Major pacing problems. Didn't he get stopped by Kelly Pavlik before the Super 6? Well, recently we saw Jermaine Taylor get dropped by Caleb Truax after the Super 6, right? Who exactly was Jermaine Taylor during the Super 6? Now, I'm not saying these guys were terrible fighters. I'm not saying that. The point I'm simply making, especially after looking at Alan Green get hit flush not once but twice in 4 rounds with left hooks he should have blocked, after seeing Alan Green, who of course lost to Edison Miranda before the Super 6, look a bit limited after the Super 6. And after seeing Glenn Johnson, who beat Alan Green in the Super 6, get beaten by Lucian Bute after the Super 6, we really have to ask ourselves, the Super 6, were they really appreciably better than, let's say, Sakio Bika, who, in my opinion, and you can look at the fights and judge for yourself, gave Andre Ward a tougher fight than Carl Froch did, right? Sakio Bika, style-wise, what is it about him that makes you believe that he wasn't Super 6 quality. Right? Let me also point out that it is true that Carl Froch in the Super 6 fought Andre Ward, who I do consider to be an elite in the division. But let's remember, Carl Froch lost to Andre Ward. It's not like Froch beat Ward. Also, forget the scoring, and I'm going to hear from people on the scoring of that fight. As you saw the fight, wasn't it clear that Andre Ward was winning the fight? Wasn't the scoring a little bit closer than you thought it should have been? Also, let's talk about Mikhail Kessler. Kessler fought Ward. I thought he got dominated in the fight. Now, I know I've heard from Kessler fans that they feel their guy was headbutted in that fight, and that's why he didn't look that good. What's the excuse for him getting hit and dropped by Alan Green in the first round of their fight in Denmark recently? Right? What is it about Mikhail Kessler in the post-Joe Calzaghe era that has led you to believe that Mikhail Kessler is appreciably better than some of the fighters that Lucian Bute has fought? Let me also say this too, and keep in mind, that first Libredo-Andrade fight was troubling. I'm not here to say it wasn't. And I'm not here to say Libredo-Andrade has blinding hand speed. He doesn't. But doesn't Libredo-Andrade, and I know this is controversial, but doesn't Libredo-Andrade in the ring move better than Carl Froch? Doesn't Libredo-Andrade actually apply more pressure than Carl Froch? In fact, let's turn back the clock. Wasn't the knock on Carl Froch before the Jermaine Taylor fight that Carl Froch was a slow starter? That Carl Froch, not only didn't apply pressure, not only wasn't a pressure fighter early, he was actually a slow starter. Is it possible that Libredo-Andrade's style was tougher for Lucian Bute to handle than Carl Froch's style is going to be? Because against Carl Froch, Bute has a bigger foot speed advantage, right? And so all I'm saying is this. At the end of the day, styles make fights, not locations, right? Not some abstract notion that regardless of styles, one guy has fought the tougher competition, right? And also, let's remember, just because we call it the Super 6 doesn't mean that the guys in the tournament are the 6 best guys in the division, right? Mikhail Kessler, I would question his lateral movement. I would make the point that his career hasn't been the same since Joe Calzaghe solved the puzzle about halfway through his fight, right? Since then, fighters who know how to use lateral movement are able to have moments against Mikhail Kessler. Isn't that Kessler fight really what everyone is hanging their hat on in talking about the greatness of Carl Froch? Because it couldn't be the Glenn Johnson fight, since Lucian Bute did better against Glenn Johnson than did Carl Froch, right? It couldn't be the Andre Ward fight, because the knock on Ward going into that fight was that Andre didn't have a big punch. So the fact that Carl Froch went the distance with Andre Ward really shouldn't have been that much of an eye opener. So just to wrap up, you'll know I'm full of you-know-what. If Carl Froch comes out, is able to touch Lucian Bute with a jab, especially if Froch is able to not just touch him with a jab, but bust him up a bit with a jab, then if Froch is landing with regularity and he has Bute cornered up on the ropes, Froch has actually cut off the ring on him in a manner that Libredo Andrade did late in the first fight, then you'll know I'm full of you-know-what. But if you're watching this fight and you see Bute's hands down around his waist, but yet curiously he's not getting hit, right? And if you see Bute able to lunge in, keep in mind he's a southpaw. If he's lunging in and landing power left hands on Carl Froch, especially if those power left hands involve body shots, right? So if you see Froch's jab neutralized, if you see Froch unable to cut off the ring, and you see Bute landing left hands, because Bute is left hand dominant, and if you see a speed gap between the two where Bute noticeably looks faster than Carl Froch, and if that continues for a while and Froch either gets stopped or beaten on the judges' scorecards in his hometown or in his home country, right, then you'll know that Lucian Bute has been a businessman, not a sheltered fighter, but a businessman. And you'll also know that speed kills, that Lucian Bute is a talent, that Lucian Bute is at least Super 6 quality. That's what I think is going to happen in the fight. Let me know what you think. We only have a few more hours left. Understand, when you look at these videos, the real action's not really in the video. The real action is in the comment section. It's in sports fans, us talking to each other, right? The people who watch my videos are not afraid to call me out and to disagree with me, right? You'll notice that at least 30 to 40% of the comments are always differing opinions. I would encourage everyone to read the comment section. Let's talk about this fight. And then after the fight, I hope you stop by with your post-fight thoughts. And if you want, post a post-fight video. Even if Froch comes out and blows out Bute, go ahead and post a post-fight video and just send me the link and I'll link it to my own post-fight video. Hopefully I won't be eating crow. If I am, it won't be the first time. All right. Thanks for watching. Let me know what you think. I hope you leave your comments for me here online. Visit us at gamblersadvisory.com. Enjoy the fight. I'm expecting Lucian Bute to put on an inspired performance and to get the win. Thanks for watching.